My name's Purvi. This is R&R. Uh, for this restorative style class, we mostly hold um, for a long period of time. And for a long period of time, I mean like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. And I know that that's quite a range, but it just depends on the shape. And the goal of this practice is for us to release. And this week we're talking about the concept of ahamkara, or the ego-ness, the I-ness that attaches to our experience. And no place like stillness to head on our ego. Like, what is it that pulls you away? What are the things that we experience the world through our senses? The things we prefer, the things we avoid. I just went to Apple, like through a shield to get my phone exchanged, and like my Face ID wasn't working and I couldn't get to my passwords fast enough for anything. And so I had this appointment. Everything kind of went bananas, and I should know better than to expect anything to happen on schedule. But like this I-ness, this me-ness wants to control things, right? Like I like to organize and plot and direct. And I just had to go without any service on my phone for the whole drive downtown. And I was like, what if I get in a car accident? Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to call anybody. And probably everybody that I could have gotten into an accident with or would have like come to my aid would have had some sort of way for me to, get help. So these I's, these me's that attach to the things. And that's what we're kind of coming to a head with when we talk about ahamkara, just how to recognize it, to see it, and to see where we're clinging and attaching. So that being said, our pose we're going to focus on this week is a forward fold and supported Paschimottanasana. If you have a blanket, a block, a bolster, all of the above, pillows, anything else, you can use those. If you have a playlist, you can start that now. In our first pose, we're actually going to just get started lying down on your backs. Just keep your props nearby, whatever tools you'd like to use for your yoga practice. And just thanks for being here, y'all. So get onto your backs. And if my volume seems a little further as I walk away from the screen, just know that you may have to turn that up. I like a pillow for the back of my head, and I usually use a blanket for that. I like about a standard, these wool blankets that you often see around. They are perfect to just get right under the top of the shoulders and under the back of the head. This will help get your low back ribs down to the ground, your mid back ribs down to the ground, and feel a little more supported. Okay, so get cozy. And just check in. What do you feel beneath you? What's the texture? If you're on a mat, maybe the surface beneath your mat is carpeted. What's that feel like? What's the temperature in the room you're in? Do you notice any smells, any sounds? If you're home, somebody's maybe making you a meal while you get to do this practice. Or you already ate and there's just that little scent of dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever time of day, whatever meal you're into at this time. Just take note. What are your sensory experiences? You as you exist in this moment in time and all that surrounds you. While you lay here, kind of checking in, sound, smell, what you taste, what you feel. Notice any responses you have to those sensory experiences, becoming a little more inward. Is there a reaction you have? Does it trigger a specific thought? And then maybe even a little more subtle, so you go in, did you actively choose that thought, or was it habitually placed there for you? Is it something that you go to out of habit? Is a way of thinking? Do you anticipate for the future when you feel or hear or smell? Do you go into the past? Does it take you to a memory? What could have been? What should have been? What you would have done differently in the past? Notice that you're having these senses right now. So try to plant yourself as much as you can into the present. You're lying here on your back. Start to take your attention out to your fingertips. Maybe run your thumbs across your fingers, starting to wiggle your toes, taking the head from side to side. And then a nice long stretch with the arms overhead. Breathe in. Good. As you exhale, let's just walk our feet over to the right corner of your yoga mat. And then making a slight crescent shape, walk your hands over to the right corner of your mat. And try to keep your shoulder blades back onto the ground. That left shoulder, if you feel like it's following over to the right and lifting up off of the ground beneath you, see if you can plug that in. And a nice option here is to just bend opposite elbow, or bend the elbows and reach for opposite elbows with the palms. And you can even cross left ankle on top of the right. Notice how you breathe, what opens up, what feels a little contracted. Where do you notice the breath? Does that trigger any, do those sensations trigger any thoughts? And if we're in this side bend on our backs, lying down. Stay for 3 more cycles of breath on this side. So 3 long inhales from left ankle through the left armpit, out through the left elbow, and even the fingers if your arms are out long. Allow the exhale to soften your right side, your right ribs, your right hip. And after that 3rd exhale, release your elbows, uncross the ankles if you've got that left ankle on top, and just walk yourself back through center. If you'd like to take a stretch from tips to toes, have space for that. And then just allow your arms to rest beside you in that Shavasana shape. Just feet to the corners of the mat, head and shoulders down. Notice your left side, notice your right side. What are the sensations? the muscles, the tissue. And then inhale, reach the arms overhead from tips to toes. And as you exhale, walk your feet to the bottom left corner. And then take your arms up and over to the top left corner. So you've got that little banana crescent shape opening the right side of your body. And you can grab opposite elbows. Notice the breath on the right side. That right ankle's on top. Any variations of the experience from left side to right side. You might notice it in the breath. The right lung might fill up a bit more. It might resist the inhale. So you're lying on your backs in a side bend to your left. Let's take 3 more cycles of breath. Right ankle to hip to armpit, elbow and fingers on the right side, opening up with the breath in. Allowing the exhale to soften the left side as you breathe out. Long, long, long inhale, right side. Releasing the elbows if you'd like. Exhale, uncrossing the ankles. Come through center, take a nice deep breath in, stretch apart. And then exhale one more time, that Shavasana shape. Just lying on our backs. Notice how the ground feels. What's in contact with the earth, what's kind of floating, the space around it. Do you hear sounds more clearly? Do you notice new sounds as you stay here in stillness? Just a few more breaths. Notice what stays the same, what's a bit different. And then you'll just turn the tops of your thighs to the ceiling. You'll walk your feet in towards your sit bones. Tipping over onto your right or left side. Just pause for a moment, take a deep breath in. Exhale, sigh. And then support yourself as you come up to seated. So from our seated posture, we're gonna take a gentle forward fold first. So if you have a blanket, you can sit on it, okay? If you have a bolster, you can bring it in. Use your props as you want to. You can bring the ground closer to you, your body closer to you as you're folding upon yourself, or to kind of support underneath you. If your hips are slightly lifted, you can fold that blanket up and sit on it. And we're just gonna take feet together, knees out to the side. We're gonna just take a fold, but before we do that, let's add a couple twists, some closed twists that kind of mimic forward folds. So as you exhale, you're gonna twist over to your left. Left hand comes behind you. Your right hand can rest on your feet, your ankle, or your knee, anywhere along the body where you can kind of find a little leverage, and then look behind you over that left shoulder. Breathe in to sit a little taller. Breathe out, feel your right ribs move gently towards your left ribs. One more inhale. Exhale, and then inhale, slowly come through center. Pause here, notice how your sit bones, you're just like ready to go into the other side, kind of reset, and then move into the twist on the right side. That left hand might rest on a different part of the right leg. Left palm, right palm behind you, and looking over that right shoulder. You can be on your right fingertips, just twisting it out. Breathe in. Ring out. And then you'll slowly use the inhale to come through center. This next pose is just going to kind of help us work on the hinge. If you find that coming down too far is going to be a bit challenge for you, no matter, just structurally, or if you're working with an injury, you can always use like a table or a chair or, sofa, something to kind of be a little more elevated. But otherwise, you're going to start to fold. Think heels further away from the groin. We want to fold into ourselves. This tortoise pose here. Feet are eventually reaching for, head is eventually reaching for the feet. And maybe even the forearms can slide under the shins. Your bolster or block and or both can rest. So your head has a place to kind of ground into. We're here for several minutes. So know that you may have to add props or move them to work with the shape. I want you to find a comfortable version of this. This isn't like a forced or coerced pose. In this restorative style, we're really trying to open up the connective tissue that weaves through us. I've said it kind of before, it's described as like a flower opening, like flower blooms. We're not forcing it. It's going to happen in due course with time and as the time presents itself. And as you're here folding into yourself, this is that opportunity to check in. What do you cling to? Where do you go? What do you listen? What do you hear now in this shape? How does the air feel around you as you're folding into yourself? The majority of our lungs are actually behind us and we can't see them. So I want you to feel for your breath. Really feel it in your low back, your mid back, your upper back, neck and shoulders, the base of your skull. Energetically feel it down to the crown of your head, up and over to the crown of your head, to the top, down to your feet, the arches. And our body gives a little bit of hints towards our psychology. So our physiology and our psychology can't fully separate them. They're interwoven, these experiences, these energies. And so our subconscious picks up the tension in the body. The body picks up the tension in the mind, whether it's conscious or subconscious. So just notice where it's creeped in. Have you planted there on purpose? Is it in your hips, your knees, your jaw, your face? Is there something you're holding on to, you're clinging to? Is there somewhere you can let go? Maybe a little more space between your feet and your hips. Maybe sitting a little taller instead of making this a deep fold. Check in. Go through the senses. smell, sound, the texture of your clothes, the temperature of the room, any lingering scents in the air. What stays the same, what's a little bit different. First, the second pose, and the last pose before it. Take your last 5 cycles of breath. So your inhale, really exaggerating the back of the lungs, the back ribs. Exhale, maybe your upper body can fold a little closer to the ground. Your knees can be released a bit more. Wrap up the last couple breaths, and then you'll take your time sitting up. You can bring your knees together. Sometimes I like to just give them a little hug, a little squeeze in. And then you'll let your legs go long. So our pose this week we'll be taking, or this for this class as we focus, is supported Paschimottanasana. But I want to open this up just a little bit before we take that next forward fold on. So you'll grab your props to have nearby. And then when we come into our legs long here, you can just kind of move the feet around, and we'll take a couple side bends. So toes can be efforted and slightly back. And left hand will plant down. Inhale, reach the right arm up. And as you exhale, side bend to your left. Maybe walk the left fingers a little further. Breathe in from right hip to right fingers. Reach a bit more. And then exhale. See if you can bring that left elbow down to the ground. Rest on that forearm. Gently draw the right arm back. Breathe in. Breathe out. You can look down. And then engaging from the navel, pressing down through that left arm, start to reach the right arm up, straightening the left arm. Both hands rest beside you. And then inhale, left arm reaches, right palm can plant. As you exhale, bend to your right. You can inhale, walk those right fingers a little further away, and then maybe as you exhale, drop that right elbow down, coming onto the forearm. That left shoulder starts to creep forward, drop back, left arm back, breathe in, left hip to left fingers. Then exhale, you can look down to that right side. Reach the left arm up, come off of that right arm, breathe in through center. And then you'll just bring your hands together behind your low back. Your fingers can interlace. So meeting behind your sacrum, and then just bringing your elbows forward. Inhale. Exhale, elbows back. Press the back of your hands into your low back. Inhale. Elbows come forward, opening the tops of the shoulders, the back. And then press the back of the hands back. Inhale, elbows back. And your ribs can splay a little. Be all right with that. We're just kind of flapping these little wings here. Little wings. And you'll do that one more time. Forward in your own pace and back. And then soften. You can soften the legs. For a lot of us, we have tight hamstrings. And so Bringing something beneath the backs of the knees is great. So you can put a pillow there. You can sit on a blanket as well to help kind of elevate the hips. You can just bend the knees and fold, but I find that to hold for a long time, you'll want some sort of prop. So I suggest behind the knees first. If you'd like something under the hips, that's great. And you can even bring something across the front body. So if I really wanted to do this, I maybe roll my blanket up. In Paschimottanasana is just our straight-legged fold, and then bring this bolster either right under my ribs, so my belly can rest and my head can hang, or depending on, you know, if my arms need a little more support and my head needs it, where you place it. But give yourself room to fold forward and keep a bend in the knees. I want you to soften your feet. And they don't have to be in super flexion or in pointing and flex back or pointed forward. They're just loose. They're subtle, they're soft. Wherever feels comfortable, and it might take a little adjusting. Find that pose for yourself. And, you know, I've got a block, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to rest my head. I've often found if the head can have some support, it'll take it. And for some, especially that prefrontal cortex space, the forehead, if you can ground it physically, connect it to something, it helps us root into the moment a little bit better. With the baby, I have a 5-month-old. I can, when she doesn't, she's like on the cusp of sleeping and resting, but she is fighting it. Sometimes I just bring my hand to her forehead, my finger, and I just gently press down. So you can even do that to yourself in this pose as you fold. You can bring your thumbs or the knuckles of your index fingers and just gently kind of find that spot between the brows and on the forehead. You can sweep back and forth or up in downward strokes. Just get comfortable. Notice where the breath is, how it feels, the back body, from your hips to the base of your skull, even your scalp. The back of the legs. How does it feel in the front body as it folds onto itself? As you spend time with yourself and you slow down with yourself and observe yourself, even if it's just for a flicker, for a moment, and then we're off with a thought, right, far off and away. What do you observe? Without judgment, just acknowledging. We exist in this world through our human experience, right? Our senses. We use these sensory experiences to either seek pleasure, avoid pain. And then we create these habits around them. Before we realize it, we're clinging to things without knowing it. We're just slowing down long enough to check in. What are we reaching for? What are we grasping for? Do you observe any patterns in your body and in your breath? When you're off with a thought, do you hold your breath? Do you clench? Do you cling? Is it a type of like those tense, anxious thoughts? Sometimes I hold my breath. I'm just like, don't realize I'm spiraling until I've become aware that I've just been holding, like really physically responding by clenching. That response to be aware and start to invite a deep breath in. Maybe we feel foggy and it's hard to bring specific things to mind. How does that feel in the body? Let's stay for 5 more breaths. Maybe you move some props out of the way, maybe you add them in. Notice where you are right now. And after that last exhale, really let the whole breath go. See if you can let it out a little further, and you'll slowly sit up tall on your inhale. Just moving your props aside. You bring your hands to your thighs or wrists beside you and just maybe move the shoulders a little. Chin, ear to ear, or ear to shoulder from side to side. Take a deep breath in and a long breath out. And our second to last pose, we're going to be on our backs, and then you can either choose to stay here with the prop supporting you, or you can move it down for regular traditional Shavasana. But for a few minutes, a blanket or if you have like a long skinny bolster, it's going to be great. You're going to place it just behind the back of your heart. My arms rest above this. So we're opening up just a little bit, those low ribs and mid ribs, and creating a gentle, super subtle back bend, gently folded, lightly folded. Blanket can also go there. I like a flat feel versus like a rounded. So even a pillow at home, you can just place it behind the back of your heart, but under your armpits. So your shoulders can rest on the ground. You can reach your arms slightly back and up. A micro tuck in your chin. And let's stay here for a few minutes, opening up the belly, opening up the heart. It's a risky feeling for some of us, for a lot of us, to just like lay ourselves out, our most vulnerable selves, belly up to the world. Willingness to be seen, right? To show up. This physical posture. Again, that physiology, psychology plays together, kind of opening before we let the dust settle, opening ourselves up to what we experience, how we experience the world. This practice reminds us that where we have our power and how we have it is in the moment at hand. And everything around us wants to pull us away from ourselves. Our senses want to engage with the world around us. Our habits, our culture, our patterns are to go to the past or to the future. And really being where we are is how we take note, how it is and who it is we show up in the world as. And depending on what season of our life we're in, it might be focused around a specific thing or a few different things. But once we see those where we are clinging, what we seek, what motivates us, drives us, what we're avoiding, we can give ourselves some grace. That has to be that willingness, right? This openness to it. We're going to hold for one more minute or so. Notice where the breath goes. Notice any tension that's crept in. Take a scan from your fingers to your crown to the arches of your feet. Where are you physically clinging? In the muscles, your shoulders, your jaw, your gut, your forehead, your toes. Or can you let go just a little bit more? Can you relax the space between your toes? Relax those armpits a bit more. That space where your neck and skull connect. And where your neck and your shoulders connect. Take 5 more breaths here. And after that last exhale, you'll choose for yourself. Do you want to adjust your props? It might feel nice to kind of open up the upper body, especially if you're like on screens or computers a lot for your day. It might just feel good to kind of come out of that roundedness in the upper back to an openness in the chest. You can even move your prop to go along the length of your spine and support your head. So a blanket or bolster that rests directly behind the spine. Or just moving all the props out, maybe just a blanket behind the head for a Shavasana. Or traditional, just laying it down on the ground, allowing the dust to settle. Listening for sounds far away, sounds nearby. Feeling the air around your skin, the way the breath moves through your body. Any lingering taste in the mouth, the smells in the room. And settling in. Anytime you find yourself wandered off with a thought, just gently remembering the practice is to observe ourselves. That the work is to catch ourselves when we've drifted off. That our I-ness, our me-ness, the you-ness within you has some of these habits, and we're just taking these patterns. I like certain things. I avoid certain things. Certain things, specific people in my life are on my mind a lot of time. And it really takes a lot of work to bring it back into myself. And once we come to ourselves, an even deeper dive inward. How are we experiencing this moment? What is our reaction to our observations? And maybe a practice of just being with them. Start to wiggle your toes. Stretch out your fingers, curl them into tight fists. Move the ankles and wrists if that feels right and well. Maybe a long stretch from tips to toes if that feels good, or you can just walk the feet in. Tip over to a side, pause. And then rise up to seated. When you find a comfortable, natural seated posture, cross-legged, kneeling, whatever works, Let's bring the hands together, Anjali Mudra. And I love this mudra because it is the symbol of union, right? Where we bring duality into one. We pause for a moment here where we bring the palms over our heart, the space within us that is of union, the metaphysical and the physical that are like our human experience, right? Our bones, our muscles, our tissues, our brain, and then everything else. Just hold it here within you, pause with it, and bring to mind something you're grateful for today. A person, a place, thing. Hold that gratitude with you as you bring your thumbs to your third eye. May this gratitude inspire our thoughts, our words, our actions, our behaviors and habits, our samskaras, the patterns in which we move through the world. Bowing forward to sit your practice. Namaste. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Purvi.
Great to have you.